Once again, welcome dear students. Today we are going to learn about the second part of chapter number 2 in history, that is Europe and India. Previously we saw what is Renaissance and how it was happened in Europe. We saw the religious reform movement in geographical discoveries, how it happened. Beside that, the American War of Independence and the French Revolution, why and how it was happened. Actually, these various events belonging to the Europe. But how these events were related to our Indian freedom struggle, that we have to see in this video. So let us start. In the second part, we will be seeing the following topics. First, Industrial Revolution. Second, Rise of Capitalism. Third, Colonialism. Fourth, Imperialism. Fifth, struggle between England and France. And sixth, the foundation of British rule in India. So let us start with the first point, Industrial Revolution. Industrial Revolution. In Europe, in the latter half of 18th century, some revolutionary changes began to take place in the field of industry. Goods began to be produced with the help of machines powered by steam at first, and later on electricity came to be used. Now this age of machines began, that is known as Industrial Revolution. Industrial Revolution was the transition to new manufacturing processes in Europe. Transition means a changing process. These changes were included going from hand production method to machines, the new chemical manufacturing and iron production processes, the development of machine tools, rise of mechanized factory system, use of steam power. Like that, the changes were included in Industrial Revolution. This Industrial Revolution started or began in the country England at first, and later it gradually spread to the other part of the Western world, means other part of the Europe. The industrial prosperity of England was so great that England came to be described as a world factory. But do you know why was that Industrial Revolution started or began in England at first? Yes, because England had natural resources, water power, suitable climate which is useful for the industry, and that is the reason Industrial Revolution started in the country England at first. Now, Industrial Revolution marked a major turning point in textile industry. How? Just see, starting in the mid of 18th century, innovations like flying shuttle, spinning jenny, power loom, which made the weaving cloth and spinning yarn and thread much easier, and the production of cloth become faster and required a less time and less human labor. Now, beside that, the invention of steam engine was very important. After the invention of steam engine, with the help of James Watt, that steam engine was not only used for factories to produce the manufactured goods, but also it was used for railroads and steam ships for transporting them. The volume of production of variety of goods will increase, and that is the reason Industrial Revolution gave momentum to Europe's economic progress. Now the second point is rise of capitalism. See, due to the industrialization, a new system of society called capitalism arose. Capitalism was an economic system which means the production and distribution were privately owned and operated for the purpose of profit. Means the economic system were mainly depend on the private sectors, not under the government. But what is the reason behind the rise of capitalism or how the capitalism arose in Europe? Let us see. See, the Industrial Revolution played an important role in the economy of Europe, and because of that, the volume of production of variety of goods increased. The internal and the international trade both were expanded, and now they need to secure a new markets in the international field was then felt increasingly. Earlier already we saw that the geographical discoveries helped to increase the trade between Europe and Asia. And because of that geographical discoveries, the new sea routes were got and many traders came forward to trade with the eastern countries through that new sea routes. Eastern means the ancient countries like our India. Now it was also a chance to the traders to get a new market. But it was not easy to carry out the trade with single-handedly, and therefore many traders came together and they started their trade. Thus, there was a rise of trading companies like East India Company. We can take the example of British East India Company. When the British traders came together, they were created British East India Company. Similar like that, the French traders came together and they were created their French East India Company. So through that companies, they were doing their trading activities with Eastern countries. Now, the traders were realized that the trade with Oriental countries, Oriental means the Eastern countries, was very profitable and economically prosperous. So the ruling powers or the king or the government now gave protection and trade concession to these trading companies. Now this led to the accumulation of wealth in Europe. Accumulation of wealth means collection of wealth or store of wealth. Now this wealth was used as a capital for trade and commerce, and which gave a rise of capitalism in Europe. And this capitalism afterward were the reason to arose colonialism. Now the third point is colonialism. European trade with Asia and Africa prospered because of the new sea routes which connecting Europe with the eastern countries. And that is the reason a concept like capitalism arose, and similar like that a new concept of colonialism arose. But what is the meaning of colonialism? Let us see. Colonialism is the practice by which a powerful country directly controls the less powerful countries and uses the less powerful countries' resources to increase their own power and wealth. Now, this powerful country, on the basis of their economic and military strength, they occupies another region and establish its political supremacy. This process or this concept is known as colonialism. Now, how did that colonialism started? See, starting in the 15th century, some European states established their own empires. During European colonial period, Portugal began looking for a new trade route and searching for civilization for the trading purpose. Now Portugal and Spain, they both become forefront in competition for new territories and took over indigenous land in America, Africa, Asia and Australia also. Indigenous means native or local land. Now following to them means following to Portugal and Spain. The other European countries like England, France, Germany, they also quickly began their own empire building overseas. Now the colonial race began in European countries. If we can see that at first the main purpose behind searching a new territory was market for trade. But later they means the European countries moved towards colonialism. Now in the process of colonization, the European trader used to buy goods from colonies at a considerably low price and then they sold them in Europe at higher prices. So they got more profit. In order to exploit the colonies more systematically by using force, they holded the power. Now with that power, colonizer may impose their religion, their economic policies and cultural practices on the indigenous people. Now, colonialism bringing about slavery, brutality and death. Brutality means a physical violence and death. So it proved to be a very cruel towards the indigenous people. We can take the example of our India also. Because of the British colonies, the Indian peoples were also suffered. So the colonialism led to rise of imperialism. So what is imperialism? That we have to see in point number 4. Now the next point is imperialism. See, after the colonialism, the Europeans' need to secure new markets in the international field was then felt increasingly, and so with the help of surplus capital, modern machinery and a well-equipped military force, the European nations began to expand their empires in Asia and Africa. And as a result of that, a new system of imperialism started. Now, what is the meaning of imperialism? Imperialism is just similar to the colonialism, but it is a next step to colonialism. Imperialism means a system in which a powerful country controls other weaker countries by establishing its overall domination and establishing more than one means many colonies. And in imperialism, a colonial country or that undeveloped country lost their total freedom and they just become assured markets to supplying raw materials to the imperial powers. And our India too was a victim of this process. Now, during that time, the power and the prestige of a country, the European country, was measured by the number of colonies which they controlled. And this European imperialism, after become a responsible for the outbreak of First World War. Till now, we saw the various events after the Renaissance in Europe. But these events, how they related to our India? Let's see with the help of this flowchart. It is easy to understand. Due to the geographical discoveries and industrial revolution, a new system of society called capitalism arose. Due to the capitalism, colonialism started. Colonialism led to rise of imperialism among the Europeans. Example, Britishers established their colony in Surat at first and later they expanded their empire in India. So how the journey of Britishers started in India, let us see. Vasco da Gama landed at Calicut on the western coast of our India. Later, at the beginning of 16th century, the Portuguese established their power on the western coast of India. And following to them, the Dutch, the British and the French traders came to India in 17th century. Now, that time, the Mughals were the mighty power in India that we already saw in last year history. The British established British East India Company to carry out the trade in India. Now this company took permission from the Mughal Emperor Jahangir and established its factory in Surat. The trade between India and England was carried out through this company, through the British East India Company. Now, after some time, after the death of Mughal Emperor Aurangzeb, the Mughal power began to decline and there was a political instability in the country. Means there was nothing a strong central power in our country. And the European traders were exploited the situation to their own advantage. They took the advantage of that situation. And there was intense rivalry among the European powers in securing the monopoly trading rights in India. See, as early in Europe, the English and the French were the rivals and fought several wars. Now, this political conflict in Europe further transformed into commercial rivalry for the supremacy in India. Now, the conflict between the two East India companies means the British East India Company and the French East India Company occurred in the Carnatic region in our India. Now, due to this rivalry, there were three wars fought between them, between England and the France. And these wars were known as Carnatic War. It was fought in Karnataka region in India, that's why it is known as Carnatic War. Now, in the third and the final war, England defeated France and therefore now there was no strong European competitor for British East India Company in India. And that's why it was very easy to the Britishers to let the foundation of British rule in India. When Britishers entered in India for the purpose of trade, British East India Company established its factory in Surat at first. But Bengal was the first kingdom to be occupied by the British in India. How? See, Bengal was the most fertile and richest of India's province, and East India Company carried a very profitable trade with this province. So what happened in 1756 AD, Sirajuddaula, when he was a Nawab of Bengal, during that time East India Company's officers were misused the trade concession which they obtained from the Mughal emperor in Bengal province. How? See, English means the British East India Company's officers built fortification around their factory at Kolkata without the permission of Nawab. Fortification means a defensive wall, or we call it built a wall for the purpose of security. So without the permission of Nawab of Bengal Sirajuddaula, when Britishers were built fortification means a compound around their factory. So Sirajuddaula captured the factory at Kolkata. and this created discontent in England. And it was decided a war or the battle between East India Company and Nawab of Bengal. So, the British East India Company's officer Robert Clive, he diplomatically bribed Mir Jafar. Mir Jafar, the commander-in-chief of Nawab's army. Robert Clive were diplomatically bribed. Bribed means make illegal payments to exchange for favor. So what Robert Clive done? For change Mir Jafar's mind in favor of Britishers, he promised Mir Jafar to make him the Nawab of Bengal. So finally, when Sirajuddaula and British troops were met on Plassey on 23rd June 1757, that time, as per the settlement with Britishers, Mir Jafar, the commander-in-chief of Sirajuddaula's army, he was no moved his army against the Britishers, and that's why Sirajuddaula was defeated. So, the Battle of Plassey, which was fought between British East India Company and Sirajuddaula, finally Sirajuddaula was defeated and Britishers gave Mir Jafar the position of Nawab in Bengal. Mir Jafar became the Nawab of Bengal with the support of British. But he also started protesting against the British. Means he also opposed the illegal trading activities of the Britishers. And that's why Britishers threw out him from the position of Nawab and appointed his son-in-law Mir Qasim was a Nawab of Bengal. Now Mir Qasim tried to put restrictions on the illegal trade of Britishers. Means when he also opposed the Britishers, so Britishers throw out him from the position of Nawab and once again appointed the previous Nawab Mir Jafar as a Nawab of Bengal. Now Britishers' interference in Bengal or to restrict the activities of British in Bengal, Mir Qasim, Shuja-ud-Dawla and Shah Alam, they formed an alliance against the Britishers. Mir Qasim, the earlier Nawab of Bengal province, Shuja-ud-Dawla, the Nawab of Ayodhya province. Ayodhya is situated nearby the Bengal. And Mughal Emperor Shah Alam. Shah Alam, the Emperor of India. Three of them formed an alliance against the Britishers. And they ran a campaign against the Britishers. And finally, they fought a battle at Buxar in Bihar in 22nd October 1764. A battle of Buxar was fought between Britishers and Allied power. Now, Britishers won this battle. Britishers won the Battle of Buxar and after this battle, a treaty was signed at Allahabad. So by this treaty, Britishers now secured or they got the right to collect the revenue in Bengal. So like this manner, the foundation of British rule in India was laid in Bengal at first. After capturing Bengal, Britishers moved their attention towards Mysore. Now Mysore, it's a place belonging to today's Karnataka. Now there were four wars fought between British and Mysore, which was known as British-Mysore struggle. That time, Hyder Ali rebelled against the Britishers and took control of Mysore. And after the death of Hyder Ali, his son Tipu Sultan became the ruler of Mysore. And he also continued his struggle against the Britishers. He tried his best to fight against the British, but unfortunately, at the end, Tipu Sultan died in the battle at Srirangapattan in 1799. In this manner, the British took control of Mysore territory. Means Mysore also now came under the British. Now, to strengthen the British power in India, the Britishers turned their attention towards northwest frontier, means the northern boundary of India. That time Russia was a rival country of England. So the Britishers feared that Russia might attack on India via Afghanistan. So it was unsafe for the British colonists in India. Hence, the Britishers started establishing their influence over Afghanistan. The route toward Afghanistan went through Sindh province. The British understood the importance of Sindh, and hence they captured the Sindh province in 1843. We can see that Sindh province in our map. Now, Britishers moved towards Punjab, and there were two wars fought between Sikh and British, which were known as Anglo-Sikh War. Let us see how that war happened. In the beginning of 19th century, the power in Punjab was in the hands of King Ranjit Singh. After the death of King Ranjit Singh, his minor son Dulip Singh came into the throne. But because he was a minor, on behalf of him, his mother Queen Zindal looked after the state affairs. Means she looked the administration of Punjab. But she could not keep control over the officers because some of the Sikh officers disliked to work under the Queen Zindal. Now, taking advantage of this situation, the British bribed some of the Sikh Sardars. Bribed means changing mind. The Britishers now changing the minds of some of the Sikh Sardars towards British side. So the Sikh community thought that the British will attack on Punjab, and hence they launched an attack on British. The Sikhs launched an attack on British. This was a first Anglo-Sikh war. And in this first Anglo-Sikh war, the Sikhs were defeated. But still, Dulip Singh remained on the throne. Britishers kept Dulip Singh remain on the throne. But the interference of the Britishers in Punjab were increased day by day. And the growing impact of British over Punjab was not acceptable to the Sikhs. That's why Mulraj, he was an officer of Multan. He revolted against the English, and thousands of Sikh soldiers participated in this war against the British. It was a second Anglo-Sikh war. And in the second Anglo-Sikh war, the Sikhs had to face defeat again. And in 1849 AD, the British finally captured the entire region of Punjab. After defeating Sikhs, Britishers strengthened their foundation of rule in India by defeating the Marathas. And the British colonial period onwards, the modern period started in India. Thank you.